What's up, my boomers? It's me, Melanie Mac, here on my new channel, Melanie Mac Go Boom. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me today. So for today's video, I'm going to talk about, I'm going to dunk on Rings of Power again, because like I say in all my videos about this, I will take any excuse I can to do that. Now, I just find it's interesting that a famous Batman writer weighed in on this. I like to see other professionals and people who are a part of big fandoms and ongoing fandoms weigh in on things like this, because it's important, and it's important that the fans feel heard across different fandoms. And so it just gives you like a little bit of hope that there are people out there involved in properties that still care about fans. Now, before I dive into this further, I wanted to talk about something from my last video about Tomb Raider, because people kept trying to correct me on something regarding it. And I forget that, because okay, so I'm just going to dive into it and I'll tell you guys. Now, on my last video, I mentioned Eidos Montreal and Crystal Dynamics both being busy with their, having been busy with Guardians of the Galaxy and with the Avengers projects, and how that affected Tomb Raider's development, I would imagine. And I got a few comments from people trying to correct me on that, saying as if they have nothing to do with each other, those two studios. They're completely separate. They have nothing to do with each other. Why would that impact Tomb Raider? Now, this is very common knowledge in the Tomb Raider community, but apparently not in the regular gaming community. But Eidos Montreal has assisted Crystal Dynamics at some capacity with all of the rebooted Tomb Raider games. Now, with Rise, I'm not exactly sure at what capacity, but I know for certain with the rebooted Tomb Raider game, the first one, Eidos Montreal did the multiplayer on it. And with Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Crystal Dynamics was very busy with the Avengers project game. So they handed over the brunt of the development to Eidos Montreal in that case. Even so, it was a cooperative effort. So Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal are sister studios of sorts, and they help each other out at some capacity. Now, I'm not saying it's like a 50-50 effort and they're like the same studio, but both studios being busy absolutely affects Tomb Raider. Because otherwise, like say just Crystal Dynamics was busy and Eidos Montreal wasn't, then they could have filled in the gap there and helped out with pre-production, etc., etc. So, again, this is very common knowledge within the Tomb Raider community, but apparently not elsewhere, that both studios do assist each other at some capacity with things. So, well, now let me go ahead and move on to today's topic. I'm going to go ahead and read this article. I could talk about Tomb Raider for days, man. There's a lot more I'd love to talk about, but I can't just make every video about Tomb Raider. But I can sneak Tomb Raider in other videos, as I do. So famed Batman writer Chuck Dixon explains why what Amazon is doing to The Lord of the Rings is an abomination. I mean, using the word abomination, like he ain't even holding back, man. All right, so prolific comic book writer known for his long runs on Batman, Detective Comics, and The Punisher recently shared his opinion on why he believes what Amazon is doing to Tolkien and The Lord of the Rings is an abomination. Dixon, who also adapted Tolkien's The Hobbit into comic book form, sat down for an interview with European Lore, where he was asked his opinion on the current state of film and television adaptations. Dixon responded, "The state of contemporary adaptation is pretty miserable, film and television, because they want to change the work." Thank you. He gets it. He actually gets it. They find things in the original or the source material that offend them. Oh, based. Or that they feel don't fit our postmodern sensibilities, and they alter them. And it's a crime. It's a crime, he added. Oh my gosh, he's so based on this. Dixon would then specifically address the upcoming The Lord of the Rings of Power adaptation from Amazon Prime's video. He said, "What Amazon is doing to Tolkien is an abomination. The people doing the work obviously don't understand the original work. They are adding elements that are very 2022 to it that 5 years from now are going to appear laughable." Thank you. They're taking a timeless tale and setting it basically in our contemporary Zykes. I don't even know how to pronounce that. I've seen the word before, but I don't. I'm sorry. And it's just wrong, he explains. Dixon went on, so many of these things, I mean, when they do stories set in history and they want to update the attitude of historical characters to today's Morris, it doesn't work. Dude, I'm not keeping up with a lot of these things. All right, it's not right, it's not accurate, and in the end, it's not entertaining because there's a sameness to it all, he stated. That is true. Like, things are just, when everything is trying to parrot the same type of narratives, things like that, it does blend into things. Now, some issue I even had with the Batman movie, even though as much as I did love the movie, they did try to sprinkle in some woke stuff into it. And I think just the very concept of Batman being this very powerful billionaire dude, vigilante of sorts, it does very, very much go against the woke narrative, because for multiple reasons. And I feel like they did try to justify that within them, which does very much change the dynamic of who Batman is in general. And instead of letting him just be this billionaire who may not be able to relate to poor people or whatever, instead of letting him be out of touch a little bit but still doing his best and all that, they want to try to make him kind of woke. So you will find that, especially when that last line when he was going on about vengeance and all that, maybe I'm not vengeance. I don't remember exactly. I only watched it the one time. But, yeah, it's kind of cringe. But ultimately, I think just those little bit of sprinkles didn't ruin the whole thing. But I think years from now, we're going to look back at that and think how cringe it was. More people will. Now, obviously, a lot of us already do see that. All right. So, yeah, ultimately, I think he's really based on a lot of this. And I think that we need more creators who are in these kind of spaces with the fans to speak out on this kind of stuff whenever we do see properties with giant fandoms be so transformed to fit a current narrative, and especially a ridiculous one at that. So, this is refreshing. This was definitely refreshing to see. But let me go ahead and dive into some comments from my recent videos. Joe Narf says, I don't want next level storytelling. Now, this is regarding Tomb Raider. I want less storytelling and better gameplay. And, of course, classic Lara. I agree. And I want the game to be able to tell the story without cutscenes or without the characters talking all the time, without having to add companion characters. When you look at classic Tomb Raider, the focus was that, hey, this is an adventure, okay? And so the game being dropped into these environments and the gameplay itself tells the story because the story was the adventure. So you're actually living the story instead of having it thrown in your face every 2 seconds. And I, for the love of Glob, please don't make the story based around Lara Croft's personal life. Please? I'm getting sick of it. Because to do that, they're changing it. They're making her so much more dramatic. Man, I could go on for days, but let me continue. All right, Google's okay. Says, I'm curious, what would you have done if you were in charge of the franchise? Like, how would you continue classic Lara and build her back up story-wise after the poor reception and criticism of Angel of Darkness? I personally would pretend like Angel of Darkness never happened and just keep Lara in the 90s and keep giving her adventures to go on. You don't have to have this super detailed, this happens during this time, this happens during this time. But you can continue her legacy for a while. There's no reason why Lara can't be raiding tombs up until, her 50s or something like that. But so you do have a lot of timeline to still work with, especially if you set these adventures like a year apart or whatever. And the thing about it is just keep the adventures based on the stories based on adventures, because when the focus is off of Lara Croft's personal life, you just have so much more continuation that you can continue to work with. Classic Lara Croft did her tomb raiding and all that for the thrill of it. That's what she lived for. She gave up her previous life, her aristocratic lifestyle and the arranged marriage that her parents set for her, and they further disowned her for not doing it. She gave all of that up because she wanted to live a life of adventure, and she was just she got a rise out of it, dude. And so with that, yeah, she's going to keep going on adventures at any opportunity she can find. And her motivations will be for the thrill of it, not for helping people. Now, if sometimes those align, whatever. But at the end of the day, dude, this is a woman who's hungry and thirsty for adventure. Keep giving her adventures to go on. Okay? That's what I would do. I think as much as I do like Angel of Darkness for how they portrayed Lara Croft's personality, I do have kind of an unpopular opinion among classic Tomb Raider fans that I think Angel of Darkness was the wrong direction to go. I don't think the whole frame for murder, this, that, and the other was the right move. And a lot of things that I didn't like about Tomb Raider later on, Angel of Darkness did start. When it gets too involved in Lara's personal life, making her more dramatic and all that kind of stuff instead of keeping her focused on just thrill of the adventure. Also, yeah, I just had some other stuff in Angel of Darkness that was annoying. Like when she jump in to grab the ledge and sometimes do that. That little animation thing was a pain. Also having Lara kind of talk to herself. She kind of talked to herself and gave you hints in Angel of Darkness, and that kind of started that, among many other things. So, yeah, I would scrap the whole concept of Angel of Darkness and just move forward. Okay, Lara Croft's alive now. She's got many more adventures to go on, and she's getting a huge thrill out of it. Don't focus so much on Lara's personal life, because Lara doesn't really have much of a personal life outside of her adventures. That's her life. That is what she focuses on. That's what she obsesses about. Stick to that. That's what I would do. I could go on and on about more gameplay and stuff, but yeah, I would need a whole other video for that. Dan Liberty says, I'm playing through the Tomb Raider reboot from 2013, something I haven't played since 2013. I'm discovering how blatant the gameplay was designed to lead you through the story. If you can't solve the puzzle, the game tells you how. Exactly. And you see a lot of that with Rise as well. Shadow did get a little bit more open on certain things, but at the end of the day, they all do kind of follow that narrative first, gameplay second. The gameplay, like the first priority with the reboot games is story. Here's this story, here's this dramatic story, and the gameplay is just set to walk you through to let the story play out. That's it. It doesn't stand on its own, really. Emily says, how you describe the cutscenes to be like treats is perfect. That's what feels right in games. I do not think games should be used for storytelling as the main focus. Games are about winning. Well, there's gotta be accomplishment and rewards, not only story progression. Cinematic game is a trigger phrase for me now. I hope that they don't go too dramatic and emotional for the new Tomb Raider game. Fingers crossed, but I won't be surprised if they do. I agree, 1000%. Andy says, I'm totally with you on the subject of drinking. I've been pressured a lot to drink, and I've been shamed for refusing to drink. And it's just sad how many destructive behaviors are so normalized and even encouraged. We should never let ourselves be pressured into giving up our own values and principles and engaging in destructive behavior just because it's what everyone else is doing. Stay true to yourself and to what makes you better people. And if someone doesn't respect that, they're not worth keeping around. Thank you for that. And also, just to kind of preface this, if you haven't seen my last video, I was kind of talking about, you know, for those of us who don't drink, how we get pressured to. So obviously this isn't a jab at people who drink, because like, hey, that's your business, not mine. But for those of us who choose not to, we always have a lot of pressure. And someone even suggested, like, oh, there's all kinds of mocktails and non-alcoholic beverages you can hold so people won't do that. And I hate when people say that, because we shouldn't have to. Us saying, hey, I don't drink should be a good enough answer, you know? And ultimately, drinking is very, very bad for your body. Alcohol is poison to your body. It's not good for you. So at the end of the day, people can do what they want to do. That's none of my business. But it should not be glorified or even encouraged. That's for sure. All right, AKA Spade says, your reasons for being wary after hearing an emphasis on cinematic and storytelling over gameplay is exactly why I mostly tuned out of one of the PlayStation events. the guy that was talking about the announcements insisted on calling the game devs storytellers instead of game developers. This is why that 9 times out of 10, I prefer games made by Nintendo or other Japanese developers. There's more often than not more emphasis on gameplay, and I have way more fun with those. Not saying there's anything wrong with cinematic games, but when just about everything made in the West, apart from indies, has this emphasis on cinematic experiences over gameplay, it's definitely been taken way too far. I 1000% agree, and I think there's certain exceptions where I do like some cinematic games, but for the most part, no. I want to play a game. I don't want to watch a movie. If I want to watch a movie, I'd do that. And so I do think that there is this overwhelming focus in the West to make games stories above all else. And it does get very frustrating. I want games to feel like video games again and to let stories supplement that and not vice versa. Darth Khan says, Crystal have shown that they have nothing but contempt for classic Tomb Raider, so even if they do try to revive it, the game would probably reflect that contempt for classic Lara. Nah, my focus and hype is where it belongs, on the incredible upcoming fan projects. Freak Raiders AOD remake, I am really excited about that. It looks amazing if you guys haven't seen that. Tomb Raider Kingdom, Nico Boss's Tomb Raider 2 remake, only to name a few. Games made by true fans for fans with nothing but love for Tomb Raider driving their work. I know, man. The fans just do it better. And I do not have a lot of hope for whatever comes next for Tomb Raider official capacity. But we'll see. I hope that I'm proven wrong. But they do have a lot of contempt for classic Tomb Raider and classic Lara, as I've talked about on this channel and other videos. So yeah, it's hard to really have a lot of hope that they're going to do it justice when they don't even like it. Dorothy says, we've been working on a new Tomb Raider game for a while. However, we don't currently have anything to show at the moment because we know that it will get some backlash, either from our brain dead design decisions or because it's still completely broken. Thank you, crowd cheers. This paraphrase. I mean, maybe. It's been a long time now. They have been very busy, but I wouldn't be surprised if they actually put a lot more work into it than we know right now. All right, Jeremiah 29:12-13 will be my verse of the day. It says, "Then when you call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will hear you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart." I keep going on about this on my channel, that as believers and stuff, it is so important that we do some of the work, because oftentimes we do expect God to just help us all the time. And when we're going through hard times and stuff, we just, we're not putting in the work. And like with any type of relationship that you're in, friendship, relationship, romantic relationship, in this case, your faith, you got to put in work. You can't just expect somebody else to do all of it. It's a mutual thing. And so that also goes for us as believers. And so we can't just expect God to make our lives perfect and to help us if we're not putting in effort to build that faith in the relationship with God on a personal level, more praying and reading the Bible and things of that nature. So anyway, that's it for today's video. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you all have a wonderful, what is today, Wednesday? Wednesday, yes. I will see you all tomorrow, and until then, go boom.